Cleveland Browns, Los Angeles Chargers, Sunday, November 3rd, 1 p.m. Eastern. And the Cleveland Browns have a little bit of hope, Zay. We're moving forward, have at least some type of optimism with the offense. The defense looked good last week, made plays. Now you get the Chargers, a tougher team than I think a lot of people will give credit for. They do a lot of really good things, which we'll talk about. But early initial thoughts on this matchup. How are you feeling Browns-Chargers this Sunday?
This is a big week for the AFC North as a whole. I mean, you got the Ravens going up against Denver, who is another team that's taken the AFC West by storm, with their defense being one of the top in the league. And you have a Chargers team who's also playing extremely well on that side of the ball. And, you know, I read off the stat last episode where we haven't beaten the Chargers since 2016. So they have our number these past few years. I'm expecting this game to have some fireworks, honestly, man. I don't really care about the 13 points per game that they're giving up. I think that Jameis Winston, the Flacco fever, it's all too relevant. It feels too familiar. So until I see otherwise, I'm expecting some fireworks this game, man.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. I'm glad you brought up that defense because I was doing a little bit of research on them, and yards per game, they're towards the top. I believe they're top 10. They're number 8 in the NFL. But it's the red zone defense that really scares me. When teams get down there, and the Browns will get down there, they just shut the door. They shut the door. Teams are scoring in the red zone, scoring touchdowns in the red zone against them only 41% of the time. That's 4th in the NFL, the likes of Chicago, Pittsburgh, and Denver up there. Really, really good red zone defenses. But this defense overall is good, and they're going to present a lot of different challenges for the Cleveland Browns. To me, I'm scared of that defensive front a little bit. I don't know how the Browns are going to handle that. But, last game, they did real well against the Ravens, so I do trust it a little bit.
Last time you mentioned off a stat like that, we were going up against the Giants and how their red zone defense was, and we came out early and we smacked them in the mouth. And I think this could be a little bit different story. We haven't having Jameis Winston out. When is the defense going to do what they did the first 7 weeks, right? Yep. They came out and gave the offense a bunch of opportunities to, get a lead and start to do some things that we wanted to do, like we were doing last year. And if we can come out at home with the adrenaline, with the momentum, and this defense can come out here and create a turnover, I mean, we may not be talking about this red zone opportunity stuff. Like we could honestly minimize it if the big plays that we had. How many plays did we have in the red zone last game? I don't think we had many.
No,
I can remember correctly. So especially the way that Jameis likes to air it out, maybe we don't need the red zone this week.
Hey, I would love that. I would love if they scored before they got in the red zone. It would definitely eliminate some stress. That is for sure. On the other side, though, I mean, the Browns in the red zone have been solid this year. They're 18th in the NFL right now, just over 50% of drives that when you get down there, they close the door. But for the Chargers offensively, the red zone offense doesn't matter as much as what they want to do overall offensively, which I think anybody listening or watching will know is run the football. And they're pretty good at it. Overall, the Browns, again, have been middle of the pack, but last 3, they've been top 3 in the NFL in rush yards per carry. They have been shutting the door. I think that largely correlates to Mo Hurst being back and stepping inside as well. But the last couple weeks, they have completely shut the door. And I think if they want to have any success this week against the Chargers, as good as Justin Herbert is, turn him into a pocket passer. Don't let the run game complement what he can do with his arm. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, we know what Justin Herbert can do with his arm. I think you mentioned it, the Chargers always seem to run the ball well on us, just like they have our number. I just think of the Austin Eckler runs and just those past years where this could really be a high-scoring game. But I don't know, man. Something in my gut tells me this game is going to be – I don't want it to be one-sided, but if Justin Herbert can't get it going with his arm, it could be a long day for the Chargers, man. I just feel – the momentum is just so hot right now. And then seeing that MVP, like the Nickelodeon award thing, like it just bring back so many memories? Like,
yes,
this feels like a familiarity that we were in last year. So I'm riding this way. I don't think the Chargers are going to come in here and do too much of anything this week.
I don't either. And I'm so glad you brought up the Nickelodeon thing because I saw it and like within 2 or 3 tweets, replies, scrolling down, there was the Flacco picture with Amari Cooper dumping him on him too. Like, you feel it. It's definitely different. I don't know if it's just like a sense of optimism or it's just a new quarterback switch after poor quarterback play, whatever it was. I also think we're just overlooking legitimately the play styles of Joe Flacco and Jameis Winston, they're very, very similar. Like mistakes are going to happen. I'd be shocked if we saw a Jameis Winston game this week without a pick. Like he's going to throw the ball down the field. Turnovers can happen. Turnovers will happen, but he's aggressive. He gives his playmakers chances to make plays. That's exactly what Joe Flacco did. It's just the exact same, not the exact same, but a very similar archetype of quarterback, a very similar play style that's back in Cleveland. It's very refreshing to see, and it brings back memories, like you said.
You know, as long as we can get Jameis, like we talk about, we know Winston's going to throw a pick or two here and there, but this team can manage a turnover or two. It's not like this team can't handle that. It's when you go back-to-back interceptions for pick sixes and you put them behind the eight ball where it's just out of reach. That's when it's unlikely for them to happen. But, I mean, how many times have – even in the first 7 weeks with Deshaun Watson, how many times did we have turnovers or did we give the ball back on 3 and outs and his defense come out for a whole half and dominate? So I think if you can get half of the interceptions of what Joe Flacco gave you, I think Jameis Winston is looking at this as the perfect opportunity. Like this may be the last chance for him to have a starting job moving forward. And I think if you're the Browns, you have to look at that as an opportunity for him as well.
Yeah, and I think he looks at what's happening with Joe Flacco too. I mean, just going into a situation where you come in as a backup, but the team knows what you can do and trusts you enough to make a quarterback change mid-season because the starter is not playing well. Like this is an audition for Jameis Winston, just like it was an audition for Joe Flacco last year. And I mean, you know,
and he's 30.
Yeah, exactly. He's not that old, which is crazy. And quarterbacks have long lifespans in the NFL. He's about halfway through his NFL lifespan. If you're talking about the quarterbacks, the quote unquote journeymen who have started a little bit younger and played through their late 30s, like halfway through. And it's the audition that matters the most. 1 week through, the audition has gone really well. There's also some intangibles to Jameis Winston, the leadership and everything you see. He's a very clear stand-up guy, very clear guy you want in your locker room. And that goes a long way too. But on the field, the audition, like you talked about, is very real. He's got a lot to prove. This team has a lot to prove. Like, you watched this team last year, again, with Joe Flacco towards the second half of the year, and they're walking into games where maybe they weren't underdogs, but you didn't know how they were going to perform, and they showed up on the biggest stage. That expectation, coupled in with the expectation of stepping in for Deshaun Watson, like they have pressure. They have things to play for, and I think when you look at what Jameis Winston did offensively, it doesn't feel like that for him. We talked the very beginning of the year. There was pressure on Deshaun Watson from the outside looking in, but he's like, yeah, I don't feel the pressure. And whether that was true or not is above our pay grade. We don't know. But you watch Jameis Winston play, and there's undeniably pressure. There absolutely is. Anybody who says there's not because, you know, the Browns started the season bad and you're filling in for Deshaun Watson didn't play well, like, what do you have to lose? The reality is there's pressure for Jameis Winston trying to prove himself to go get a job next year, trying to prove himself to go win this team games. With a defense like that, you win games, you get hot, you make the playoffs, you can beat anybody. That's the reality of it, not just the Browns, but any team like that. There's pressure, but Jameis Winston doesn't play like it. And I think that is the most remarkable thing of any athlete, any sport, but a quarterback in football, when you don't play like there's pressure, even when there is, it goes a long way. And I think your teammates feel that too.
I just think it's such a breath of fresh air. Like, we saw it at least 2 times that I can think of when the camera panned over and we saw Jameis Winston on the sideline hyping up his linemen or hyping up his running backs or his defense. I think it was the defensive side of the ball too. And it's like, that was the type of leadership. I think it was either last episode or the episode before that where we talked about the team was missing that leadership on the sideline. We weren't getting it out of Deshaun Watson. You weren't getting it out of Kevin Stefanski. And the fact that you're getting it out of Jameis Winston, I mean, you knew you were getting it, but it's like a wise man once said, it's contagious, man. It really is contagious. And the energy that Deshaun Watson was flowing around was contagious, which is why the offensive line was so bad, which is why you couldn't run the ball as much, which is why after a while the defense finally cracked. Like, this team, the reason why I don't want to be too optimistic yet is because of our record. But when you're looking at the situation now, the Bengals are 1 loss away from their season being sellers at the deadline. No, I mean, I think you have to be a seller. And if Baltimore can lose to Denver at 5-4, I'm not talking about any division race here, but the wild card is in play. Yeah, 100% in play. So we handle business this week. You got the perfect storm with Jameis Winston. You know he's looking to prove the doubters wrong. and everyone's surrounding and rallying them just like they did Joe Flacco. It's the perfect storm.
Yes, it is the perfect storm. That's the best way to put it. For the Browns, it is more than just offense, though. When we talk about the defense being this otherworldly being, great at home, we know this. What are you looking at on the defensive side of the ball this week against a team that's literally going to try to take your offense out of the game with 7-8-minute drives, ground and pound, go play action, keep you on your toes? What are you looking for out of the Browns defense this week?
I need a turnover. Like, we need them to fly. This is the game where, with the energy and the momentum that you have, this offense is looking to go out there and I think repeat a performance of last week. You got Cedric Tillman going on the fly. I think if this defense is at its best when they have the lead. And unfortunately, the first couple weeks that we had when we did have a lead against the Giants game, and I believe we had the lead against the Raiders, I just didn't have that feel where I was like, yeah, game's over, or yeah, we could lose this. With this team, with this offense, if this defense gets a lead, we getting back to what we saw where Myles Garrett's doing between the legs and moving left to right, and this defense is flying around, and maybe Martin Emerson gets back into his bag, and these DBs can start playing into their groove again. If they can come out here and have a start like they did versus the Giants, we know what direction it's headed. So that's what I'm looking for. I want this defense to come out here and fly from the second that this snap goes off.
I am 100% with you. And I think taking care of the football is also as important as taking care of the football is as important as it is taking it away. And you look at this Chargers team, they've been really good at both this entire year. They've only given the ball away, I believe, 4 times, and they have 10 takeaways. They're +6 in turnover differential, where the Browns are -4, and the Browns are towards the bottom in overall takeaways as well. If you're Cleveland, you got to get the ball out. You got to get the ball out. That is a play that will change the game, that can change the game. And, we talked about Jameis's dropped picks last week. It's not like the Browns didn't have a couple opportunities too. And they've had plenty of opportunities really all year long. So if I'm the Browns, the turnover margin is the big key here. It's the big key in a lot of different games, probably the most important stat in terms of correlation to wins. But if I'm the Browns, getting that football out can change the game. I think you do that. You, again, put Myles Garrett in situations where he can go pin his ears back, get the quarterback. You make the Chargers uncomfortable. The second the Chargers get away from their offensive identity of being able to ground and pound, they're going to go into a shell. Like, that is the reality with this Chargers team. And, you look at their schedule. Obviously, last week they pretty much blew the Saints out. 2 weeks ago, they were in a close game against the Cardinals, lost on a game-winning field goal. Like, you look at a lot of their games, they haven't really had to abandon their identity. The only time, at least that I can think of off the top of my head, was the Steelers game. I believe they lost by 10, but there are other losses. Like, you lose to the Chiefs by a touchdown.
7.
You lose to the Cardinals by 2. The other wins, you're blowing teams out. You are in the lead and you feel comfortable with where you're at. Any game they have been forced to go away from their identity, which honestly is really just the Steelers game, looking at it, they go into a shell. That is not who they are. That is not who they are. And if you get a team on the road playing a type of football they're not used to, they're going to fold. And I think if the Browns can get them out of that comfort zone, which I think they can, they're going to win this game.
I mean, I look at it from this aspect, like you're looking at Justin Herbert and J.K. Dobbins. I mean, I know McConkey's having a good season this year, but this is a matchup that the DBs have got to be looking at and be like, oh, yeah, this is dinner right here. Let's go eat. Let's go get us one. I feel like it's been forever since the defense has got an interception.
Yeah.
I mean, when is the last interception this defense has gotten?
I'm trying to think back.
It wasn't Philly. They didn't get one there. I think who has one? I think we have one this year.
I'm looking right now at the overall takeaways.
I know a lot of them came on fumbles, blocked field goals. We got one there.
Yep, they got one.
McLeod has one.
Does he? Is that who it is? I'm trying to think back.
Maybe not now. McLeod. I don't even know if we have one.
No, they do. They have one.
Jaden Daniels threw one. We got one off him.
That's right. And it was JOK.
Yeah, JOK with his broken hand. That's right. So, I mean, if I'm a DB, it's like one of these games is going to be a DB game. And I mean, this feels like it has writing on the wall. I like Denzel Ward. Okay, line up on McConkey. It doesn't matter who you line up Denzel Ward on. Greg Newsome, I'm probably not going to put him on Quentin Johnson, but he can handle Josh Palmer. And Emerson is right up Quentin's alley.
Yes.
So it's like, this is the secondary. You asked me where I'm looking at defense? Secondary. This is their game.
Me too. And I'm staring at Greg Newsome. I think it's weird because it feels like every single, like most games we've gone into, like you got to stop the slot guy. And it's always Greg Newsome who's in the slot. That's how it goes. But this game, especially the focal point of the pass game is Ladd McConkey. I was looking at some of the coverage grades, the matchups. He is statistically a top 15 matchup for any pass catcher in the entire NFL this week, at least from what Greg Newsome and the Cleveland Browns have showed in terms of coverage and slot production. He's got to win. The one-on-ones, he's got to win. And it's so much easier said than done, and we talk about it all the time with Greg Newsome. I feel like he's somebody, and us included, myself included, who we point at because he's good, but there are other players, again, like Grant Delpit or Denzel Ward that are better, like that are just that much better, that good. And we're like, you got to step up. It's not like he's not good. But this week especially, tough matchup against the rookie who's really talented. Big game. Oh, you need a big game from Greg Newsome. If Greg Newsome gets a pick, the state of the city's going to erupt. That stadium will erupt.
Anybody get an interest? I think I just want the defense, offense, special teams game. I just want to see it one time to know, is this legit? Because the Chargers, by all means, you can look at it and be like, oh, well, it's just the Chargers. I want to see it against some other teams. But the Chargers are playing good football right now. And we've seen defense and special teams play well. We've seen defense play well because special teams, Dutch Hopkins was bad this past week. He missed a kick last week again, didn't he? Yeah. So it's like we haven't seen all facets of this team play perfect football like we have last season at one point. So let me see what it looks like with Jameis at the helm this week, because we know what the defense is going to bring. And you're going right into the season. This is November football. This is right before it gets real gritty. We're starting to get healthy a little bit. If we can go into December football 500, man, watch out, bro. It's over, man. Watch out. We coming for that wild card.
Yeah, anything truly can happen, especially, again, when you have a defense like that. You have special teams that can be one of the best units in the NFL. And at this point, you got an offense you believe can score points, which is crazy to think, crazy to say right now because of how the season started, but that's the reality of it. One aspect of this game I don't think we've talked about a ton is the Browns D-line versus the Chargers O-line. Browns will get after the quarterback. We know that. Myles Garrett, Dalvin Tomlinson, Zadarius Smith had a great game last week. Oh, my gosh.
9 pressures.
Yeah. They're going to get after the quarterback. But I'll tell you what, this Chargers front, they can block. They have 2 very good tackles, interior. They're very good. And the Harbaugh scheme overall makes life very easy for these guys in the run game. That is a matchup that I feel confident the Browns can win. But I am a little more cautious with what I expect in the run game. Because, again, the Browns have looked great in the run game the past few weeks, and it's not like they've been playing slouches either. Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, like these are real legit running backs. And J.K. Dobbins has looked good too. I don't know if he's in the tier with those guys, but he's looked good. If you're the Browns going up against an offensive line that has moved people in the past, that's the bottom line. They've moved people in the past. You got to show up too. I think as Browns fans, the whole we expect Myles Garrett, Zadarius Smith, Dalvin Thompson, this D-line is the constant of they're always going to be causing pressure is a fair assumption. But this week, I wouldn't just assume. It's a tougher matchup.
I mean, it's perfect timing because last week we finally got to say it. Well, I finally got to call a call and saying one of my favorite names in Obo Rankaro. So, I mean, he got a sack last week, which was huge because that was his first all season. Devin Bush has been consistently very quiet and not being taken advantage of. Diabate's coming into his own light. And then you look at it all the way at the bottom, and it's like, oh, wow, Myles Garrett had 1 tackle. And that's it. So it's like one of these games, Myles going to go off. But if you're going to get this effort from everyone else, how much easier is it going to be for Myles to go off on one of these games, like you said? So maybe he wants the tougher opponent. Maybe he's tired of everyone saying, oh, he's taking advantage of, man, give me these Chargers blockers, these good guys, and let me go over here and destroy them. Because when's the last sack we got on Myles? We talk about we talk about interceptions. Did he get one against Burrow? He didn't get one against Burrow.
No.
And I don't think he got one against Jalen Hurts.
No.
Did he get one against Daniels? I don't know if he got one against Daniels either. He got 2 sacks against the Raiders. So it's been 1, 2, 3. It's been 4 games.
Yeah.
Since he's got a sack.
Mm-hmm.
So Miles is due for one of those games, and especially with him being thrown around in the trade rooms. I know you saw it, the 3 first-round picks, and he's untouchable to me.
Yeah,
I'll just say it. He's untouchable. But if I'm Andrew Berry, you got to at least listen, right? So I know he hear it. This is a 2-sack game, right?
Yeah, I would hope so. I mean, this is a tough matchup on either side of the offensive line on the tackles. But yeah, this has to be the Myles Garrett game. This has to be the Myles Garrett game. Maybe this is the welcome to the NFL moment for a guy like Joe Alt too, because he's been playing really well. He's a rookie, but I mean, your biggest players step up in the biggest games. And I think when you just talk about overall what this Browns team is going to look like this week, moving into a bye week next week, then an away game the week after, everything is going to be left on the field this week. Everything. Like you can feel that. That's the direction it's going now, because you feel players want to play for a quarterback a little bit more. They're out there fighting even harder, playing with more swag too. I know you saw the Grant Delpit thing after he hit stick Derrick Henry. Like you feel the swag coming back a little bit, just one game at a time, one play at a time.
It kind of scares me though, doesn't it? So imagine they win this game, right? They win this game and they do it exactly like how we're talking about, confident blowout fashion. They go into this bye week with that. We know how this team ego can get. Yeah. We know how they can maybe smell the ish a little bit more than we would like. It worries me a little bit because we've seen it at the beginning of the year. I'm not going to say it worries me most because this team is built off their aura. They're built off their confidence. I'm perfectly fine with them. You know, you want to talk Derrick Henry, you want to do all this stuff. I'm fine with all of that.
Yeah.
But going into a bye week on a 2-game win streak, knowing you're going to New Orleans, I'm a little nervous in that retrospect. So I'll leave it at that.
Would you rather go into New Orleans next week, like the week after this?
Oh, 100%, bro. Yeah. Because I mean, you're going on vacation, so they're definitely vacating the first week for whatever, and then they're probably going to get into NOLA. I'd say Wednesday, Thursday,
yeah, probably a few days before.
So they'll have a night out there. Everyone goes out in NOLA. I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm just saying the distractions would be there. And if they're serious about making this playoff push, I think they need to control some of those emotions. They need to have fun, get relaxed, do what you got to do to get your mind off the game for a second. But also remember that we on a 2-game win streak and we still got a chance to make a run at the playoffs. So if they're serious about it, they would take this bye week seriously, and they would stay locked in and mentally focused going into this New Orleans game, because it's that could very easily be a trap game.
Yeah. I wonder the impact Jameis has in that scenario. One, because I mean, he's the veteran presence. He's more down to earth than a lot of guys. He's kind of the leader of this group offensively. I think there's very clearly a leader now, and it's Jameis Winston. I wonder if his experience in New Orleans last year plays into this, good or bad, because he knows spots around there. He knows what to get into, what not to get into. I wonder, if he is the leader, he gets the offense or gets a group of guys, maybe takes the O-line, whatever it is. And says,
that might actually be a great point.
Yeah. You don't know. And Jameis, I think, as a leader, would do a good job getting everybody in the right headspace in general. But you get down to New Orleans and you got maybe younger guys I want to go out and do this, blah, blah, blah. No, I'll take this on rocks. Let me figure something out for us. You never know. And I think Jameis is the type of guy to do that.
No, that's a great point, because I could totally see that happening, to where we'll see clips or something where it's all the guys there and it's they in a controlled environment. They in the area where none of these videos can get taken out of context, or you know what I mean? I could actually see that happening, and Jameis being the one saying, I wanted to get the guys together. There was a spot. That's a hell of a point right there. And I'll be looking forward to that, because I bet you we see a clip or two. We got to.
Oh, for sure. And I think Jameis, just the figure he is being down there, is going to be out and about doing whatever, seeing the places he loved to see when he was down there for a couple years. But at the end of the day, they got to be the Chargers first. I'll ask you players to watch in this game, then score prediction. But I am very, very fascinated when it comes to Ken Dorsey play calling game 2 because I'm not going to sit here and say it's easy, but there's tendencies that Kevin Stefanski has as a play caller that when you walk into a game as an opposing defense versus a new play caller, Ken Dorsey, straight up don't matter. They don't matter. And Ken Dorsey walked into that game against Baltimore with, you can look at his tendencies from over a year. It's basically over a year ago, first half of the year in Buffalo, if you really want to, but tendencies that weren't there. I'm looking at that. What players are you looking at specifically in this game?
There's so many players to look at because of what we saw last week. I mean, just a quick recap. You had 9 targets for Tillman. You had 12 targets for Moore. You had 8 targets for Judy. You had 7 for Njoku. We harp and harp and harp on it. Get your money makers the ball. Get your playmakers the ball. Everyone else, 1 target, 1 target, 1 target, 2 targets. They are feeding the playmakers the ball. Nick Chubb, 16 carries. I'm locked in on those 5 guys. Though you want to talk about how far can this team go? We know what Jameis can bring us. Back-to-back weeks, you've seen Cedric Tillman flourish into his welcome to the NFL moment. Elijah Moore getting 12 targets and capitalizing on 8 of them for 85 yards is exactly why you traded him for a second-round pick. Yep. Jerry Jeudy getting 5 for 79 with a long of 30-yard completion by coming with Yak is exactly why you signed him and gave him a contract. And David Njoku, what's understood don't need to be explained. I am so intrigued if this is what we're going to see moving forward, because usually it's like, oh, Aikens here, maybe a couple targets for Cedric Tillman there, Pierre Strong to get a couple dump offs here, Jerome Ford to get involved here. It's like, nah, we beating you with our studs, and this is what it is. So line them up. So Cedric Tillman, Moore, Judy, and Chubb, those are my 4 guys that I'm desperately watching, because I think Cedric Tillman is slowly ushering his way into this number 1 position. Yeah. And I think Nick Chubb is about one little slip through a tackle away from giving us that 40, 50-yard run that we are all waiting to see.
He looks explosive. That is for sure. He looked like it was maybe not night and day, but it was very clear that he looked more comfortable. He looked better in terms of finding lanes. He said it. He said he saw the field better last week too. Like, that's a rust thing for me. Like, he missed a year of football. So as you get back, you're going to see the field better. But now you couple that with him being healthier, I'm with you. I think we could see a big Chubb game. It's a tougher matchup this week. The Chargers run defense is pretty good, but that is definitely he has in the past. That's for sure. He has in the past. And I do think this Chargers team is different in terms of what they do under Harbaugh, offensively, defensively. Another huge aspect to this that not a lot of people talk about, and I'll talk about my players in a second here, is the time of possession numbers from this year. Because the Chargers, well, let me say this. When you have an offense that keeps the other offense off the field, naturally your defensive numbers as a team are going to be, I guess, deflated because they're going to be lower a little bit. The Chargers are 5th in the NFL in time of possession. They can take care of the football. Last 3 games, they are 2nd in the NFL in times of possession. That keeps your defense off the field. So I will say, when any of you guys, any of us look at Chargers defensive numbers, understand that is a large reason why. That is a huge reason why. Their defense is good, but their offense keeps them off the field and limits their opportunities. It's perfect complementary football. That's why they are currently a playoff team, which is crazy to say, but they are. But offensively, I think it has to be a David Njoku game. We talked about all those targets, the receivers, all the attention's on Elijah Moore, Cedric Tillman now, obviously. Jerry Jeudy got the contract. But looking back at a couple games against the Chargers, that is where the consistent targets are. Like Taysom Hill, Juwan Johnson combined last week, 8 targets. McBride, 7 targets. Travis Kelce, 9 targets. Brock Bowers, 8 targets. Michael Mayer had 3 in that game too. And in the other games, they don't really play tight ends who are focal points in the pass game. Those are offenses that are pretty balanced. That's the reality of it. And I'm sure the Browns are a balanced offense. I'm sure Ken Dorsey preaches that. But the reality is they're throwing the ball more than they have with Deshaun Watson. They're more comfortable in terms of what they can do offensively in the pass game too. I could see a 10-target game for David Njoku this week. That's who I'm watching offensively. Defensively, I'm just going to push neither of us can say Myles Garrett. We're going to watch Myles Garrett. That's going to be a huge matchup, regardless of which side he's on, regardless of which tackle he's on. It's going to be enormous. I'm going to have my eyes glued to that. I think the safeties have to continue to have a big game in the run game. Grant Delpit's been good against the run. Everybody who stepped in terms of Juan Thornhill being out, the backup stepping in, the sub packages guys, and then Juan Thornhill these past couple weeks, he's been back. They've been solid. This is a game, again, I said it 15 minutes ago. If you force the Chargers to abandon their identity, if you force them into second and long, third and long, and they can't stay ahead of the chains, they are going to fold. This is not a drop back pass team. This is a play action, keep you on your toes, and make sure you don't know what's coming next team. If the Browns can stop the run, I think it starts with the D-line, but the safeties help out a bunch too. I think the Browns can win this game by double digits, to be honest with you. This is not a team that is comfortable from playing from behind.
As I say, we get this lead. We get to let this defense get comfortable. They start flying around. They start scheming up different things. You know, you said the safeties. I'm going to go linebackers here, man. JOK being down. Diabate stepped up huge last week. Like we're not saying anything bad about Devin Bush, so he's been stepping up. You know, it's one of my players that I'm slowly loving to watch play. Like I think I genuinely love watching him make a tackle is Jordan Hicks. Yeah. Whenever he's healthy and on the field, he tackles like his little brother, like he's the big brother tackling his little brother, like who grabbed his controller from his hand. Like he plays with so much aggression, and I think you're going to feel the presence of JOK being lost. It's just you're not going to see Six blowing through gaps and getting TFLs on a consistent basis this week. So who's going to be that guy to kind of control those gaps and, you know, control J.K. Dobbins in that run game aspect? So I'm gonna look at can this linebacker room step up without JOK and provide the same explosiveness or mimic the explosiveness that JOK has. Quick fun fact on the offense, real quick, but Nick Chubb, he's averaging 8 yards per carry against the Chargers. The last two games that he's played, 17 carries, $134, 2 touchdowns. And the game before that, 21 carries, $161 and a touchdown. Nick Chubb loves him some Chargers games. Yeah, so
I guess so.
I seen his over-under set at like 50 something and a half. I'm smashing it.
Over. I would too. I think this game is going to be, I think the Browns will win. I think it'll be close enough that neither team really has to abandon the run either. Like, I think it's going to be a game where it's a slugfest. Whichever teams get into the red zone and put touchdowns on the board instead of field goals are going to be which team wins. That's usually how it goes. But when you're playing a red zone defense like the Chargers, it's even more important this week. I love the Browns offense, and I think the firepower potential is there. I just think this Chargers defense is so good in the red zone that the Browns are going to struggle to turn 3s into 7s, which, again, if you're getting field goals, it's not the worst thing in the world, especially when you're playing an offense that, I don't know, I wouldn't call that Chargers offense prolific. It's not like they can go throw 30 up on somebody, but I don't want to jinx it by saying that, but I don't think they can. I think the Browns score 20 points, again, as crazy as that sounds, back-to-back 20-point games. I think they hold the Chargers to under 20, and I think they win. I'll go 23. I'll go 23-16 Cleveland. 7-point win, a comfortable win.
I know you're worried about the red zone defense, but one thing that we know about Jameis Winston, the same thing that we knew about Joe Flacco, and we saw a lot of it last week, is that he's not afraid to throw his guys open. You've got a lot of good playmakers on this team. Javen Njoku's a guy that he just throw it up and let him go make a play. Cedric Tillman's 6'4", throw it up. We've seen him. It's almost like we don't even get to see the jumping, like the big playability of Cedric Tillman because he's taking the top off of defenses, and no one even talked about his speed. He's taking tops off like it's a convertible. It's crazy. So I think when it comes to that red zone thing, you just got to let your playmakers make plays. And I don't think Jameis is going to be afraid. So give me the Browns 27. I don't want to be too disrespectful and say 10 points, but my gut just tells me this just feels like the game where everything is going to swing our way. I don't know why, but I'll go 27. I'll go 27-16. And they'll get some field goal. I think the Browns will have a big couple stops. They'll give that bend don't break defense. They'll get down there and they'll end up stopping them and they'll hold them to a field goal. So give me the Browns 27-13.
Love that.
Or 16.
Love that. We're both on the Browns. Both think the Chargers are going to score 16. You're a little more gung-ho on the Browns offense. And hey, at the end of the day, that's we just talked about it. I'm giving him a field goal. You're giving him a touchdown. That's the difference here. So we will see what happens. But Chargers Browns, 1 p.m. Eastern this Sunday. We will both be in the Muni Lot pregame. So if you come by the Muni Lot, say what's up. We will be there having a good time getting ready for this game. Any final words before we sign off, Zay?
Yeah, make sure you guys get down there, man. I expect I think it's gonna be a great crowd this week. I know last week, I don't know if you guys saw the videos. It was so depressing to see. I mean, bro, it was 5 o'clock in the morning or 4:45, and there was 3 cars on that freeway side. I was just like, what is going on? So I'm excited to see what the turnout's going to be this week because I know they feeling the fever like I am. So bring your energy, bring your hype, and make sure you guys come say what's up. Don't be shy to come say what's up and take a picture, have a drink or whatever. But with that being said, here we go, Brownies. Here we go.
We appreciate you guys. We will see you next time. Go Browns.